Hi, guys. Welcome to tonight's live chat. So glad to see you guys chatting and chit chatting away while I tried to get situated. I had a long day today at the office, and um, coming from the office to my home where I'm at now is just a long drive. Okay. So it takes me a little while. So actually, let me jump in here. Instagram is acting up again. So let me see if I can get them situated and then I'm ready to jump in. This topic tonight is a very interesting one. Really, we're talking about something known as infantilization. So we're going to talk about that. Let me hold on, guys. Bear with me while I get Instagram on board. Instagram is so hard to get connected when I go live. Anybody who goes live on Instagram, it's a little bit of a headache. So come on here. Move. Okay. You guys are probably wondering, what's infantilization? Well, I'm going to explain that in just a little bit here once I hit the go live button on Instagram. I think it's something that a lot of you have experienced, but it's hard to identify because family dynamics are complex, they're messy. There's ups and downs in families, there's bad behavior in toxic families. So sometimes it's really difficult to identify when infantilization is happening to you. So I'm going to break that down. I'm going to say on Instagram, welcome to the chat. Come join us on my channel. There are people already signing in on Instagram, so that's good to know. Okay, infantilization. Let me turn my fan off. Hold on, guys. I need a little extra air, so I turn my fan on. I want you to think of infantilization as the relationship where you lose you, the relationship where you lose you. You lose who you are, you lose your mind, how you process things, you lose your ability to regulate your thoughts, your feelings, your behaviors. You lose that individual right to decide, to engage, to wonder, to desire, to process, to grow. You lose all of those things when infantilization is at the root of the issue. Sorry, guys, I saw my camera shift a little bit. You lose all of that. You don't have the ability when you have someone that's kind of lording over you in a relationship. For the purposes of tonight's conversation, we're talking about family, but this can also relate to other relationships as well. When you have somebody that's above you, or at least they try to rise above you, it's really difficult for you to experience life as you would just being you, because that person that's kind of standing over you all the time is telling you, whether it's verbal or not, how to think, how to feel, how to behave, how to engage, what to do, how to look, how to think. I mean, we can just go on and on and on. Nobody wants that kind of bondage, right? Or that kind of imprisonment. Oh my God, I don't know what's going on. My camera just keeps acting up. If it continues, I may have to restart, but we're going to see if we can make it. You lose all of that. Infantilization is the idea that you are being treated as an individual that doesn't have the right to experience anything. You don't have the right to be your individual self because the person who is trying to lord over you or stand over you is telling you that you don't qualify, you don't have the maturity or the ability to do something, or that their way is the best way. When you're dealing with infantilization and that person who's lording over you is your parent, you're an adult child, but that parent is lording over you in a very toxic way. And I'm not talking about the loving moms who just want to make sure their kids are good. My mom does it and I love her for it. She'll say to me when I get to the office, Tam is what she calls me. Are you at the office? I'll say, yes, Mom, I'm here. She'll say, okay, I'll see you later tonight. Wherever I go, I'm checking on you, just want to make sure you're okay. Part of that is because my career is tricky and she's a little bit worried. People know me. But she's being a mom. I'm not talking about that kind of a mom. I'm not talking about that kind of loving relationship or family. I'm talking about the kind of parent that minimizes your ability to think and to feel and to behave in every sense of the form of the word freedom. You don't have any freedom to be you because there's that individual over there saying my way is the best way. What happens after you experience years upon years of being told that you're incapable? We're going to talk about that tonight, but I'm going to give you just a little peek into what we're going to talk about briefly, which is you learn to internalize the message that is being sent to you when someone is lording over you. When someone lords over you, they're basically saying they're better, they're more capable, they make better decisions, they do A, B, and C better than you. And so over time, you internalize that, right? And you internalize that as a voice that can sometimes become a negative voice. You have that negative self-talk most likely because you've internalized that message about you. The other thing that may happen in infantilization is something known as role confusion. I know a lot of you are probably like, oh yeah, I've been there. So consider role confusion as I don't know who I am because I play so many different roles in my family. I play so many different roles in my life. I play so many different roles in my relationship that I don't know which role honestly and authentically belongs to me. We all play roles, right, in the lives of other people. When I get off from YouTube, I'm not the Einstein of YouTube in my personal life. I am very much a sensing, feeling, intuitive person who, sometimes can, what's the word? Feel like I just need to not be a therapist for a little while. I need to just take a long bubble bath and just, I'm a human right now. I'm a normal citizen. Sometimes I go to the grocery store and I'm like, I'm not me. I'm this person because I need that sense of freedom, right? So we all play those roles. You play a daughter, you play a dad, you play a wife, you play a husband, you play a cousin, right? We all have those roles. You also play an employee. I play a psychotherapist. So we have those normal roles. But when you are dealing with infantilization, which is the minimization of your ability to be independent and mature, to be an adult in your life, then, you can get a little bit confused. You can get a little bit confused. Where do I belong here? Am I a daughter or am I a child in this scenario? You know, an example of this may be, let's say growing up, you've experienced what's called parentification, where your parents kind of checked out and you took the role of being your sibling's parent, or you took the role of being your own parent. That is role confusion. You're not supposed to be the parent. You're not supposed to be the surrogate wife or husband. You're supposed to be you, the child who's being raised, who's being loved and cared for. But with parentification, you either have to be your own parent or you're the parent to your siblings. And that can cause a lot of role confusion. Imagine, I just had a client like this today. Imagine growing up in a family where there's a lot of toxicity and trauma. There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of hatred, resentment. And you have to take the role of, the parent, the surrogate parent of your sibling. As you grow up, you're telling your sibling what and what not to wear. You are sometimes cooking dinner for your sibling. You're sometimes taking them to school or picking them up. You're sometimes getting the key out from under the welcome mat in front of the house to let your sibling in the house so that they can get ready for bed or get ready to eat dinner, right? So you've become kind of the parent. How do you kind of step out of that role, right? And be you, which is the child of the parent? It's a little bit difficult. So role confusion can get in there and make your life really difficult. And it can also impact your relationship with other people, right? In your family, because, your family wants you to play the role of, let's say, big sister, but it's a little hard to do that when you've raised your little brother, right? In a sense, you're kind of your little brother's mom, but at the same time, you're also a sister. So role confusion. The other thing I want you to consider in tonight's live chat, guys, before I go to the chat box and see what you guys are saying, is that infantilization is really a form of emotional and psychological control. It's a form of emotional and psychological control. It takes your ability to see the world a certain way, and it minimizes down to almost a grain of salt. It minimizes your ability to perceive reality, function in reality, and be independent. Let's say, for example, you have a narcissistic father. He's very controlling and bossy. He's been a problem in your whole family. Nowhere your family goes with your father is a peaceful thing. He creates problems everywhere. So let's say that's your dad. The only way that he knows how to maintain control over your mind is to tell you, whether directly or indirectly, through disapproval or approval, that you don't matter, that your thought is a crazy thought. I once had a parent say that to a child in front of me years ago when I worked in a school district. Mom sat down right in front of me. Daughter starts crying, says, I'm afraid somebody's going to break into our home. Can we please get an alarm system? And mom scoffed and laughed and said, alarm system? We don't need an alarm system. Nothing bad is going to ever happen to us. Nothing bad happens to our family. So you don't even have to worry. And the daughter comes back at her mom and says, Mom, I'm scared. My friend's house was robbed down the street and I'm afraid we're next. What does mom do? She says, no, that won't happen. That won't happen. Don't think so crazily. Don't think so stupidly. That would never happen to us. What does that do to the child? It minimizes that child's reality, that child's ability to process, to think, to have feelings, right? And so those kind of indirect messages basically is the foundation. I was going to say something else, but I'll say this instead, is the foundation of emotional and psychological control. If I can tell you over and over and over that your thinking is not appropriate, that your thinking is not intelligent, that your thinking is the problem, that your opinion doesn't matter, that your feelings don't matter. If I tell you that over and over and over, what does that do to your psyche? It totally destroys it, because now you're losing what you need to survive as a human being. They have opinions, they have feelings, they have behaviors, they have perceptions. Why can't you? Because it's a form of emotional and psychological control, infantilization. Lastly, before I go to the chat box, see what you guys are talking about. We're going to get into the thick of this topic in a little bit, okay? Because I want to tell you why this happens. I also want to tell you what you might see in yourself. And I also want to give you some idea as to what happens in this process of infantilization. But lastly, before I go to the chat box, there's something known as narcissistic infantilization. Narcissistic infantilization. And basically what that is I minimize you with the purpose of making you feel minimized. So then that way I could be almost exaggerated in a sense. Oh my God. I think my camera needs to reboot, guys. I don't know. Let's try to get through this. If it does it one more time, I'll restart the whole chat. So narcissistic infantilization is you become small. So I have to minimize your impact, your thoughts, your feelings, your behaviors, your opinions, your judgments. I have to minimize all of that so that then I can feel bigger, more powerful, more in control. And I can also control your psyche so that you don't embarrass me in front of other people. This is narcissistic infantilization. So that you don't make our family look a certain way, so that you don't make me feel a certain way. I'm going to minimize your ability to see, think, feel, judge, perceive, so that I can then be really big in life. And then I can get ahead of you in that way. That's narcissistic infantilization in a nutshell. Okay, let me go to the chat box, see what you guys are saying. Let me welcome you. Odetta, I hope I said that correctly. Hello and welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. Says, I'm so excited. I'm going to catch your live conversation. Yes, you caught it. So glad to have you. So glad to have you. Brecca Kinones, I hope I'm saying, I messed that up. I already know it. But welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. Says, I've been waiting to I've been wanting to catch her live, but I'm always working, but not today. So glad to have you. So glad to have you. Fifi LaFleur, hello and welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. Says, looking forward to today's video. Hello, Dr. Tamara. Hello. So glad to see you. Cam, welcome, by the way, if I didn't already say that. Cam, good afternoon to you as well. Welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. Annie Walker, hello and welcome. Glad to see you. Ebony Hall, hello and welcome. Thank you so much for that, and you're welcome. I'm so glad they're in depth, and I try to make them comprehensive so it feels like a therapy session. You know what I mean? Ebony Hall says, I have a better understanding of my family dynamics, which in turn helps me understand myself. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for saying that. I'm so glad. That's validation for me as well. Angela says, oh my God, I was meant to be here. Oh, I'm so glad. Welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. Louis S., hello and welcome. Glad to have you back. Louis S. says, hi, Tamara. In my opinion, an inferiority complex is at the root. An inferiority complex is at the root of a controlling family. Agree? Sometimes an inferiority complex, I'm so sorry, guys. An inferiority complex is sometimes at the root of a family that is controlling, but sometimes, which I'm going to talk about in tonight's live chat, sometimes the inferiority complex is really just infantilization, that I've never really been given the opportunity, and I don't want to give anybody else the opportunity to grow and develop and to be independent, because then I'm going to be judged. I'm going to be seen a certain way. There's competition. I really don't have the space to control people or tell them what to do. Infantilization is really, it's a toxic process. It's a toxic dynamic by which one family member says, I'm either insecure myself, I'm angry, or I'm narcissistic, and I don't know how to operate within a family. So the best way that I can operate is to minimize everybody else so that I can then look like the big one in the family. And that's how I'm going to survive. So sometimes, yes, inferiority complex is at the root of a controlling family, but so too is just infantilization. I'm going to minimize everybody because I can't handle other people in my family having as much power and control as I do. I hope that made sense. It'll probably be clarified as we go on. So bear with me, Louis S. Tammy Nicely, hello, welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat, and you're welcome. You're welcome. Moon Warrior Turtle, hello and welcome. Glad to see you as well. Longevity Rituals, hello and welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. I see what you were saying, and I'm sorry that is happening to you. That is not good. Cherry's Jubilee, hello, welcome. Glad to see you back in tonight's live chat. Looking for comments, guys. Jessica J, hello. I'm sure it is 100 degrees. Welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. Dawn 1, hello. Thank you so much for that. Hope you're having a good day as well. Welcome. Glad to see you. Nancy R, hello. Yes, I'm so glad you see it as a therapy session. That's awesome. That's wonderful. Glad to have you, Nancy R. Elizabeth, hello and welcome. Kat, hello and welcome. Glad to see you. I'm actually looking for comments, guys. Here's FIFA LaFleur. She says, this is definitely my family. I am the family scapegoat because I stand up for myself and call them out. Yeah, I see my camera's freezing again. The only thing I know to do is not lean on my table because I think it's one of my cords acting up today. I don't know. I don't know what to do. FIFA LaFleur says, this is definitely my family. I'm the family scapegoat because I stand up for myself and I call them out. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, most families don't like you to stand up and call them out. Infantilization is the process by which a family member who feels they have control, power, dominance says, you are not to be recognized. You are not to be paid attention to. Your opinion doesn't count. Your judgments don't count. Your needs don't count. And so when you stand up for yourself in a family like this, the family or the individual retaliates, or they minimize you, or they push you in a corner to silence you, for the simple fact, again, that they don't want you to have that kind of a voice, and you're kind of pushing back when you stand up. It is what it is. It's a sad dynamic, but it does happen. It does happen. Psalms 100. Yeah, one of my favorite Psalms. Welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. Eclone Judo 99. Hello and welcome. I'm glad you could be with us this week. Glad to see you. Nansas Volt. I probably mispronounced that. Peace to you as well. Hello and welcome. I'm looking for comments before we dig deep into this conversation. Julia G, hello and welcome. Glad to have you. And thank you so much for that. You're welcome. Glad this is helpful. Sun and Sunflowers, welcome to you as well. Glad to have you. Odetta says, I have two older sisters that, in my opinion, have not dealt with their childhood trauma. So they are judging me because I'm dealing with mine. I had to give them a timeout of my life. Yeah. Sometimes family members will minimize you, disregard you, right? They'll use infantilization, which is they kind of give off this presence of my way is the best way, my way is the right way, your way is the wrong way. Family members that do that are often struggling with their own internal conflicts, but they don't know how to work on them, and they don't know how to heal them. So they kind of, in a way, make their problem your problem. They make your problem their problem. Or how am I saying it? They're making their problem your problem. I'm sorry about that. They're making their problem a you problem. Cam says, we love you so much and care about you. I guess that statement cancels out all of the negative. You don't live life correctly. So let me tell you how you need to. We are 30 years old. I mean, maybe in some ways they love you and care about you, but it's really hard to see that. And it's really hard to see it when their behaviors aren't really demonstrating that, right? When someone minimizes you and treats you like you're a child with absolutely no awareness of or respect of your own thoughts, feelings, behaviors, life, the list goes on, that says a lot about them. They have issues that they need to get worked out. But these kind of individuals within a family may love you, they just don't know how to show it, and they think their way is showing you that they love you, and it's not always the case. It's not always the case. Cherry's Jubilee says, you are told who you are 100%. Exactly. And I'm glad you pointed that out, because infantilization is that. It's you begin to lose, as the victim of infantilization, you begin to lose you. You lose your mind, your ability to think and reason. You lose your heart, sometimes even your personal courage, right? Think about domestic violence, where, the person in the relationship, they're going into this relationship with high hopes, believing that they are loved, believing that things are mutual, believing that there's going to be respect both ways. And one day it gets to a point where you're hit, or you're beat up, or you're assaulted. Then you kind of have to sit there and ask yourself, what just happened? Do I stay or do I go? So now you're burdened by those thoughts and those feelings, and you may also be shocked about how they're treating you. And in addition to that, the process of abuse, which infantilization can also be abusive. The process of abuse is this: I'm going to now, after I've beat you down so much, I'm going to now tell you that your opinions, your mind, your heart, your judgments, your perception of reality, none of it matters. And so then you begin to take on their view of everything. Their view of everything then becomes your lens. So you see life through their lens, because they beat you down so much and they've intimidated you so much that now the only thing you know to do is just kind of fold under them. And so infantilization is that way as well. You're not only told who you are, you begin to adopt and internalize how they see you. And that's often, their view is often, you're incapable. You don't matter. And so that's basically what it is. So thank you so much for that, Cherry's Jubilee, for mentioning that, because that's a very important component of infantilization. Infantilization can be very traumatic as well, because let's get back to the content, okay, guys? It can be very traumatizing as well, because what's happening in the process of infantilization in really bad situations, even in family abuse and family trauma situations, is it's a process of beating you down over time. You don't have the ability to stand up and take back what's rightfully yours, or to feel confident in your assessment of yourself, other people in life, because you've been told over and over and over, verbally and sometimes non-verbally, that you don't count. The process is an abusive one, and that's why it can be traumatic. You can't develop that firm foundation of identity because you're constantly told, directly or indirectly, non-verbally and sometimes verbally as well, that you don't matter. This happens a lot in families where there's narcissistic parents, because the parent constantly has to feel like they are on top of you in order to feel important and in control. And so if they can minimize your opinion of them, minimize your ability to speak out, minimize your self-concept, which can give you courage and personal strength, then they win. Sometimes the process is not that intentional, but it can be if you have really evil, dark parents who have, let's say, antisocial personality traits, or they have sociopath traits. The process can be that intentional, where the parent knows exactly what they're doing to make you feel incapable. But there's also situations where the parent doesn't realize that that's what they're doing. Every time they tell you to shut up, every time they tell you that they don't want you a part of something, every time they tell you that your opinion doesn't matter, every time they refuse to address how you say you feel, they are telling you indirectly and non-verbally that you don't matter. And so you internalize that becomes your own language over time. So you may be wondering, why in the world does this happen? Research in psychology has highlighted a few things, but to keep this live chat kind of short, let me just say there's only a few that I think is really important. The number one thing tends to be a personality disorder in the parent or the family. The family dynamic is full of personality disorders. You have someone who has borderline personality disorder, where they are aggressive, sometimes angry, hot-tempered, they get easily offended, they have fear of abandonment, they're highly emotional, highly reactive, right? Borderline personality. You may also have individuals in the family who are narcissistic and then also are sociopaths. A family where there's personality disorders, especially those that are not properly treated, infantilization can happen. I gave an example at the very beginning of the live chat where you have a sociopath parent. They need to be in control at all times. So they minimize your control so they can have the emotional and psychological control that they desire. A parent who's a narcissist will minimize your ability to kind of have your own opinions about things and to process your own life. They minimize you so that you won't have that position in a family that can challenge them. You're under their feet, so to speak. So personality disorders. There's also unresolved inner conflict in these kind of parents or in individuals who use infantilization. There's unresolved inner or internal conflicts, low self-esteem, feelings of low self-efficacy. I can't do anything right, so I'm not going to give you the opportunity to do anything right either. My dad's always told me I was less than, or I wasn't worth A, B, and C, and I'm going to do the same to you, because you're not going to get up in age, become an attorney, and tell me what to do. I once had that in a session with a parent. This was years ago. And the parent turned to the child who was in college and said, "Don't think you're getting ahead of me, because you're not. Don't think because you're in college you're better than me." Infantilization. It's just minimizing, putting that individual under their foot, right? Saying that you're not better than me, you're not smarter than me, you're not, right? It's all of those you're nots. That's the problem. Okay. So a lot of parents that use infantilization or use the tactic of minimizing your existence in the world, they often have an internal conflict themselves. Their parenting style may also impact this, right? They don't adjust, right? They look at one child and say, okay, this child was a straight A, valedictorian, somebody who graduated with all honors, but you're not. So I have to kind of stay on top of you because you're not that great. Your sister's good. I'm just going to let her do her thing, but I'm going to get on top of you because you're not that smart, right? So parenting style, they don't know how to adjust. Some of these parents, you may also have had an authoritarian father or mother who tells you what's going to be done. You're not going to talk back to me. You're not going to share your opinion with me. You're not going to tell me that you didn't like that I called you out of your name yesterday in front of your friends. I don't give you that ability to talk like that. Be quiet. I've also heard some parents, especially in therapy sessions, say things like, be quiet. It's very, very condescending. And I've heard it with both kids and adults as well, adult children, where the parent just straight out says, be quiet. I don't want to hear you. Infantilization, it's minimizing you. Favoritism, maybe your brother over there is the favorite child and you're not. So that parent is going to minimize you at every turn. They're going to minimize your confidence, your high self-esteem, your self-concept, your opinions, because they favor your brother over there. You don't matter, so be quiet. Sometimes they do this to gain control as well. Again, it's a control tactic sometimes. It's emotional and psychological control. If I can minimize you, I've got control of you. Now, one client asked me something last year. She's no longer with me. She, just graduated out of therapy. I was so proud of her because her mom used infantilization on her a lot. It was minimizing her purpose, minimizing her role, and minimizing her ability to do things in her own life. And so she says to me, which I'm going to give you here in just a second, she says to me, Miss Tamara, why am I so anxious when it comes to deciding things for myself? Why am I so conflicted when it comes to making relationship decisions, personal decisions, when it comes to shifting my life from one place to the next? And I explained to her that there's a few things that infantilization does to you. It's a traumatic process sometimes because, again, you lose your identity. So here's what happens to you. You may develop what's called low adaptability. You may not have the ability to adapt to life very well because you've never been given that opportunity to practice. That parent or that family member has minimized you so much in the dynamic that you don't have what it takes to feel confident enough to step up, right? To shift with life. Your light bill, you forgot to pay it, your lights turned off. Okay, we'll just go down and pay it. You have to shift, you have to adapt, right? I got married, the marriage didn't work out, we're going for divorce. You have to shift and adapt, right? I conceived a child with my husband. We brought a stillborn baby into the world. You have to shift, heal, and adapt, right? A lot of people who have been badgered, have been disregarded in their families, or experiencing infantilization cannot shift and adapt as adults. They can't. It's difficult. It's a new process to them because they have never been given the opportunity to do so. They've been minimized all their life. You may also notice a dependent personality developing within you. You have to depend and lean on other people to make decisions, to make judgments, to stand on what you believe to be true. You have to have somebody else with you. So dependent personality. You withdraw when decisions are difficult, right? It's easier to withdraw than to just make that decision. My childhood has been relatively healthy, and my mom has always given us free will to talk, to share our thoughts, feelings, to share what is happening with us internally. And so growing up, I always knew I had a mom that I could go to and share things with. She's going to hear my mind. She's going to listen to my heart. What that did for me is by the time I hit 20, I was able to make decisions like this because I was sure of myself. I was confident. I had that firm foundation. Those who do not have those kind of parents find making very, very small decisions like what should I eat for breakfast, very difficult. Why? Because there's this constant negative voice in the back of their mind that says, what if I make the wrong decision? Well, there's so many decisions. How do I just make one without, not having to make another? It just goes on, and you get trapped in the fear of having to decide. There's also what we call externalizing symptomatology. Externalizing symptomatology, meaning your symptoms to becoming minimized over time has been depression, anxiety, low self-esteem. Maybe you're angry, maybe you're hostile, right? So that's externalizing symptomatology. Symptomatology is another word for symptoms or how symptoms are expressed. And externalizing is a clinical term, meaning behaviors that are outward, right? People can observe them. There's also emotional paralysis. A lot of times that happens. You don't know what to do. So you kind of get frozen, you get stuck. How do I make this decision? I just don't know how to do it. You may also have fear of personal agency, right? I once had a client that said to me, she's like, I got my own apartment. And when I signed the lease, she said, I stood up, I put the pen down, and I thought, I literally can make a decision on my own to get this apartment at this price every month in this city. It wasn't clicking to her that she had the ability to make those decisions because she always suffered from fear of personal agency. She didn't know deep down that she can make that decision for herself and do it right. Traumatic bonding is also something that can happen as well when you've been badgered so much in your mind or you've been the victim of infantilization. Traumatic bonding is the concept that, I know a good side of this person and I know the bad side of this person, but because I love the good side of this person so much, I'm going to drop that negative view and I'm just going to embrace that good positive side of that other individual. And so I'm going to continue to be badgered and abused and harmed because I can't figure out which side of that person that I need to pay close attention to. Traumatic bonding, that can happen as well. All right, let me go to the chat box, see what you guys are saying. I'm going to tell you what happens to you over time and why you struggle or may be struggling in your own world with infantilization. Okay, then we got to go. I have to go again. For the past 2 Fridays, I've had 2 commitments. And so it's like, I have to get out of here before 8 o'clock. We're now 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. Okay. Annie Walker says creates learned helplessness. Absolutely. What's his name? Dr. Seligman, he's a psychologist who did a study using rats. I believe this is Dr. Seligman, Martin Seligman. And he did a study using rats where there was a cage and there was also a shocking mechanism. And here's what would happen. Dr. Seligman would have the rats in a cage. Every time the rat would try to escape from the cage, Dr. Seligman and his team would shock the rat. I know it sounds cruel. Animal studies are rough, but he would shock the rat. Okay. The rat would go back to the door to try to escape. He'd shock the rat again, or at least the people who were conducting the study. The rat would go back to the door, the cage door. He would shock the rat again. So what is this doing? This is almost conditioning the rat to believe that this is going to be a continual process. This process is not going to end. This is a continual process. So the rat may go over in the corner, appear very dejected, despondent, depressed, overwhelmed, and not want anything to do with anybody. Okay, so that may be their mood for a little bit. The rat may gain some courage, okay, and feel like, I'm going to try this one more time. Goes back to the cage door. Guess what? Gets shocked again. So now the rat, and this is a true study that has happened. The rat now has become conditioned to being shocked every time they go towards that door to escape. And so Martin Seligman basically said that the rat has learned to give up because the same thing keeps happening over and over again. And because of that, there's no reason for the rat to put effort into getting out of this bind. So what does he do? He gets comfortable with where he is. And so learned helplessness is basically that concept. I'm tired of trying to make this work. So I think I'm just going to give up. I'm going to fold because it's easier. I'm not going to keep getting shocked. I'm not going to keep doing the same thing over and over. So, Annie Walker, you are right. Infantilization causes learned helplessness. Why in the world would you continue to assert your independence or to be assertive in any way if you know your family or your parent is going to minimize you, right? And over time, the process of infantilization, again, becomes a traumatic one because you lose who you are. And technically, we can say the rat lost who he is as well. He had personal agency. He just didn't feel he did because of this continual problem. That was great. Thank you for that. That was a great comment. Yogi Ed, hello, welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. Says, first time catching a live. So glad to have you. Says, thanks for your work. You're welcome. And thank you for that. That's awesome. Shauna Thompson, hello and welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. Says, my narcissistic mother and golden child brother called me evil all my life, a troublemaker. Now I feel like I'm just a bad person when I don't and never did anything wrong to be evil. Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah, I'm so sorry to hear that, Shauna. Let me tell you, infantilization can kind of take over with you as well, because here's what can happen. If you're tagged the troublemaker within your family, right? Over time, the family starts to believe that, oh yeah, she is the troublemaker. What is the consequence of being a troublemaker within a family? You're not heard, you're not listened to, you're not respected, you're not regarded, right? Because you are now labeled the troublemaker. And so you go through this continual process of being minimized, no matter what. That's a very, very hard place to be in. Hi, Bree. Welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. Glad to have you. Give it a think. Hello and welcome. Glad to see you. It says, I literally believed as a young adult that I could not survive without my abusive family members. I also knew it made no sense. Cognitive dissonance. Absolutely. Or we can also say traumatic bonding. Sometimes traumatic bonding is cognitive dissonance. I can't hold both of these conflicting views in my mind at the same time. So I'm going to drop one view in favor of the other because this feels more like what I want. Yeah, absolutely. HR, hello and welcome. Glad to have you. Nancy R says, I was parentified. I think that's why my siblings hate me. I wasn't the parent. I was also blamed. It was awful. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Infantilization can also be a sibling looking at you, Nancy R, and saying, you're not my parent. Okay. So drop it. You're not going to tell me what to do. That pushback that you may get, right? That minimization of your role in their life or in that sibling's life, that can happen too. Good vibes 30s. Hello and welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. Says Tamara for the win. Thank you so much. Says glad to check in on time for the live stream. Yeah, glad to have you. All right. Okay. YouTube is allowing me to pause the chat. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm going to read a couple more and then I'll pause and I'll give you the rest of the content and we'll wrap up. Anna, hello and welcome. It's Pikarski. I hope I said that correctly. Welcome. Says, give it a think. My family too. Yep. I think a lot of people can relate to that. Queen Common Sense, hello and welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. Says, hi, Queen Tamara. Thank you so much for that. Good to see you again. Good to see you again as well. Says, if I knew no better, you just described my family to a T again. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I'm sure. Because this is more of a common dynamic than we think. The issue with psychology sometimes, and I love my field. I'm very passionate about my work in my field. I'm sorry, guys, my camera froze again. I love my field. I'm very passionate about it, but I'm not so passionate about it that I'm naive. And there's a lot of things wrong with my field. And part of the issue is we don't talk about these things and we need to talk about it. Infantilization is something that happens a lot and it's a part of family dynamics. It really is, whether we realize it or not. Yeah. Randy L, hello. Thank you so much for that. Welcome. Glad to see you as well tonight. Chrism, hello, welcome. Yeah, glad that you could catch me live as well. Yeah. Samaya, hello and welcome. Glad to have you. Looking for comments. Binge thinker, hello. Yeah, that's me every day, all day. Welcome. Glad to have you tonight as well. Okay, I'm not. Yeah, thank you, Mo Sim. Hello and welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. It helps so much when you guys put questions. So thank you for that. Mo Sim says, after taking care of my codependent, widowed mother, stabilizing her home and her health, she has turned on me with my narc sister. I am hurt and at a loss as to why my mom has done this. Oh my, I'm so sorry to hear that. That's rough. You may never understand it, you know? The dynamic may be such that it's going to take you a long time to process what this actually means. You know what I mean? There's a reason for what's going on. It's just figuring out what that reason is. Yeah. That's tough. I'm sorry to hear that you are going through that. Yeah, you're welcome, Anna. Absolutely. Yeah. You're welcome. Sanika, hello and welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. Chrism says, I have the house to myself tonight and can listen to you without offending my sister because of the family topics you impart. Oh my God, yeah. Don't watch this with the family that you call toxic. That happened to me one time. Oh, that wasn't good. Thank you so much for that, Sanika. Thank you. All right, let me give you the rest of the content, okay, guys? Because I got to get going in a little bit. I'm coming back tomorrow because we're going to talk about unreasonable people, because the psychology of unreasonable people has hit you. And I know it has. And you probably can't stand those kind of individuals. So we're going to talk about that because that can also be traumatic. So that's tomorrow. But let me tell you what breaks you, right? You go through infantilization with your family for so long, or a parent figure. It's like, what breaks you? What gets you to that place of not being able to stand or to feel confident or to feel stable and sturdy? There's a few things. One is that these kind of parents, and this one is just specifically about parents, okay, not family, but just parents who feel that their way is best, your way is wrong, you're going to botch it up, they're going to do things the right way. They're kind of using their role to minimize you and sometimes intimidate you into a position of not having authority, not having self-confidence, not being able to decide. It's almost like the parent says, I'm your parent, I'm always going to be your parent, and you're going to do things my way because things work out better that way. It's really a way to reduce your own view of things and to empower themselves, right? It reduces you and it empowers them. And so narcissistic parents do this a lot. Let's say, for example, this has happened in session with me a couple times with other families. Let's say, for example, your father is the controller of the whole family. He has bipolar disorder. He's always been angry and hostile. He's just mean, okay? He's been abusive verbally, abusive physically. There's been domestic violence, and he's also been sexually abusive to the family, right? So he's done a lot of wrong. He's done a lot of wrong. His only way to intimidate you and to keep you from talking about the abuse that he has caused, going to therapy to get your own help so that you can see a way out of that bind, or to talk to your mom and empower your mom to finally leave him. The only way that he can keep you submissive is to minimize you. So basically overuse his role as your father by kind of pumping himself up, exaggerating his role in the family, bringing up vulnerabilities or pieces of you that makes you feel vulnerable, right? Maybe in some way making you feel incapable every chance he gets, right? It's mental badgering. I'm going to beat your mind and beat your self-confidence, and I'm going to make sure that I cause you to feel incapable so I can be up here and you can be down here. And that's basically the dynamic of domestic violence. Domestic violence really isn't about I want to hit you. It's more so about control and dominance. I'm going to post in the description box for you guys the control wheel, because the violence and control will, because I think you need to know what those wills look like and the dynamics that's on that will. You will see probably your family. If infantilization is something that happens in your family dynamic, you need to know what the power and control will is saying. Because that's basically what's at the core of these kind of families. Okay, guys, I'll make sure I post that in the description box for you. But the goal for these kind of parents or a father like this is to badger you and beat you down until you don't know who you are at all. You rely on them for everything. So they overuse their role in your life. The other thing that kind of breaks you is the development of dependency and resentment that you internalize. So you become dependent over time on whoever, because you've been told so much by that parent, that family member, you don't have what it takes. You're not capable. You're not competent. So when you're told that over and over, you internalize resentment because you don't want to start a fight. You don't want to start problems. You don't really know how to speak up, perhaps, or there's fear there. So you internalize the resentment and you become dependent. So there's a dependency that develops over time. You may also find yourself withholding information that you should be able to share with your family. I'm going to withhold that I'm being physically and emotionally abused. I'm going to withhold that I'm being sexually abused. I'm going to withhold that my marriage is ending. I'm going to withhold that I've been living in my car for the past 5 years. I'm going to withhold the fact that I was, assaulted on the sidewalk the other day. Because if I say anything about these experiences of mine, my opinions, my feelings, my thoughts are going to be minimized and it's going to hurt. So I'm just going to hold everything right here close to me because I've never been listened to ever. So there's that dynamic as well. Feelings of incompetency and inadequacy can develop over time. You may feel that your boundaries are being disregarded constantly. That's what happens in these kind of dynamics. There's no boundaries. There's rigid boundaries, there's healthy boundaries, there's fluid boundaries. In families where there's infantilization, the boundary is very rigid. You're not going to become powerful, independent, and strong because that parent or family member is not going to allow it. So there you are trying to become your independent self, and that very rigid boundary is getting in the way, and you can't penetrate it because that family member wants you to feel small and less than, narcissistic parents, narcissistic family members enjoy this process. They enjoy the process of making you feel small. It makes them feel bigger. So they have to make you feel small. They enjoy this process. I think also too, these kind of families, individuals within these kind of families where there's infantilization, they assume over time that you are not capable. So they beat you down, they minimize you, you develop this learned helplessness, so to speak. So therefore you give up, you stop trying, you become fearful, you become dependent. And so they kind of, the family member or the parent, they kind of develop this view of you that you're not capable. So they develop this view of incompetence when they look at you, that you're not competent. So we're going to keep you over there in the corner. Just be quiet. Don't say anything because you're incompetent. You're not capable of making the right decisions or feeling a certain way or having an opinion. So they develop an inappropriate view of you. Trying to make sure I gave you everything. Yeah. Lastly, I don't know if I said this at the beginning. I don't think I did, but they end up dismissing your ability to decide. They dismiss your ability to decide. So anything you may try to assert yourself within the family dynamic, I'm going to assert myself in making this decision. I'm going to end this marriage. I'm going to adopt this child. I'm going to drop out of college because this is not for me. Any decision you try to make is going to be dismissed. It's going to be dismissed. Infantilization says your opinions don't matter. They are small. And anything you do is small. If I'm not included, that's a narcissistic parent or family. All right, guys. That's the content on infantilization. Let me go to the chat box, see what you guys are saying, and then I have to wrap up because I'm literally way over time for my appointment. Randy L says, is it fair to say it's a part of codependency and we are projection of them? I would necessarily say that it's codependency. I would say I would say that it's traumatic bonding where you kind of adopt the other person's view of you, and so there's an unhealthy dependency, but I'm not sure I would say codependent. I don't know. I may be missing the point there, and if I am, forgive me. Yes, you're welcome, Anna. Glad to hear that. You're welcome. Just Kendra says, I just had my sister tell me I was trying to bully her out of her house. She has not worked for years and family pays all her bills. Yeah. That's a toxic dynamic indeed. Oh, I don't even know what to say to that. Um, Tune in live tomorrow because I'm bringing up some cases that I've had as well that are like this. Sounds like a very unreasonable sister. You might get some meat tomorrow. HSR 1986, hello and welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. Says, I've begun to wonder if I've blocked off some early trauma and wonder if that trauma was some form of intentional abuse done purposely to set in low self-regard so that I could be controlled. Perhaps sometimes it can be. There's an unintentional and there's an intentional a part of this that can happen. If you have a sociopathic father, for example, they may intentionally build within your mind that you are incapable. And that doesn't have to be, a father, for example, saying you're not worth it. Your opinion doesn't count. You are not intelligent. It doesn't have to be that. It could simply just be a silent disposition, right? I told somebody the other day in a therapy session, you may not understand how very obvious your thoughts are and your feelings to other people. You don't have the ability to self-reflect. So when that person says something to you and your silence begins to speak, your eye roll begins to speak, the way you're sitting in your chair begins to speak, right? Then I already have the information I need to be able to see that you're affected, right? You don't have to verbalize it. So it's kind of like that in this sense, maybe this parent isn't necessarily telling you that I see you as less than, or that I want you to feel less than, but body language, how somebody is breathing, how somebody is looking at you is enough. You kind of internalize that. So yeah, absolutely, it could be intentional, it could be unintentional. Absolutely. Maria, hello and welcome. Glad to have you. Says, I went no contact 2 years ago. I have estranged myself from the entire family. I was the scapegoat. I escaped. Yeah, I don't blame you. Yeah, I don't blame you. I would go 2 years and no contact as well. Miss Wellington, hello. Thank you so much for that. I'm glad to have you. Welcome, welcome. I'm going to have to wrap up here in like literally a second. Elizabeth Pepper, hello and welcome. Glad to see you back. Says, my sister is interested in piecing together, our family's trauma and history, but refuses to acknowledge her own and the impact of our childhood. I'm the issue since I've been openly seeking help. Yeah, absolutely. She may never come to terms or grips with the family trauma. And so allow her to continue to construct her own reality until she's able to say, you know what, my reality is a fake. I'm pulling this down and I'm going straight for what the reality is. Allow her to do that in her own time. That's tough, Elizabeth, because here you are ready to go and ready to heal. And she's like, nope, I'm not going to acknowledge that. I totally get that. Molly T, hello and welcome. Glad to have you in tonight's live chat. Says, this is why I went no contact with my only sibling. My opinion never mattered. I don't matter. And I know this dynamic is never going to change. I'm so sorry, Molly T. And if that's the way you really, really feel, and there's evidence for that, there's data, you can point out that there's some truth to this, then you're probably right. Infantilization does not just go away because you wanted to. Sometimes that parent who's treating you like a child, like you don't have the ability to flourish and experience life and perceive life correctly, sometimes they still hold that view over you, even when you are independent, even when you buy your own car, get your own home, express your mature thoughts, even if you've had multiple relationships that have matured you, right? Maybe you become the president of the United States. That parent is still going to treat you that way. That sibling, that cousin, that brother, that uncle, because infantilization is really a train of mind. It's a train of thought. It's, this is my mentality. This is my view of you. And so it's hard to shake it. You know, it's really hard to shake that view once it's there. And once it's firm, it's hard to shake it. So you're right. This may never change. I'm going to talk more about this tomorrow. Okay, guys? Because the psychology of unreasonable people kind of goes into some concepts around this conversation tonight. So, yeah. Kim says, Kim is going to be my last comment, guys, because I got to run. Kim says, would you consider infantilization different from a helicopter parent? 100%, absolutely, because a helicopter parent does this out of love. A parent who uses infantilization or treating you like a child may in some ways say they love you and care about you, but infantilization really is a bind, and it's putting you in a position of compromise. It's, I'm going to have to compromise as the child because my parent is never going to allow me to get ahead. A helicopter parent may act that way up until a certain point and then stop. A helicopter parent may also be very, very self-aware that they helicopter. A parent who uses infantilization may not be that self-aware, and they don't realize that everything they do is breaking you down. You know, even if you sit in a therapy session and say, Mom, you are breaking me down, they may have the disposition of, I don't care because my way is always the best way. A helicopter parent doesn't necessarily have that disposition. You know what I mean? So, oh, you guys have so many awesome comments, and I see new people as well. Guys, I have to go. Next Friday, I won't have to rush like this. But I do have to run. So tomorrow I'm going to come back, talk about unreasonable people. And I also want to bring up infantilization in that conversation just briefly, because I think a lot of you are going to be able to relate. So thank you so much for being with me in tonight's live chat, guys. I hope this was helpful to you. I hope you have a wonderful Friday. I hope to see you tomorrow. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.